My name's Graham Brown. This is Pitchdeckasia. We like to showcase some of the best of the dynamic world of startups, people who come with different ideas. Today we're going to take a little bit of a different course, and very welcome as well. Julien Remond, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have yet another French voice here in Pitchdeckasia. We love you guys. There's a lot of French representation here in Singapore and in Asia. We're going to talk about awareness, Awaken Mind, which is your startup, your company. And really that whole deep dive into the world of what everybody's striving for in the modern day, a bit of peace of mind.
And happiness.
Happiness, yeah. There was, that actually reminds me, there's a book, is it Matthew Ricard? Have you read it? The Monk? It's The Art of Happiness or something like that.
I haven't read it.
He's a French monk. Yeah. So if you talk to me in those tones, I'll just imagine that it's him talking to me. So we're going to talk about that, but also in the context of businesses as well. Like, what is the benefit of that? How does that actually impact people in the workplace?
Yeah.
Because everybody can kind of understand why awareness helps them personally, but does it help a company, a business, and so on? So maybe we can start at the top. Obviously, you're from France.
Yep.
Whereabouts?
So I'm born in the very east, in Alsace.
Okay. On the border with
next
Germany?
to Germany.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
In Colmar, it's called.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your sort of legacy in Asia and Australia. What's the story there?
Yeah. So I actually grew up all around Europe. Started studying at ESSEC in France, where I already started traveling abroad. And about 5 years ago, I think it was in 2014, I moved to Australia to do a double master's degree in international management. So I did a degree between University of Sydney and the National University of Singapore here. And at the end of that, I just found a job in Sydney, where I worked in a financial fintech and HR tech startup, where I was founding employee responsible for scaling their enterprise sales and help them grow from $0 to $100 million valuation in just under 2 years. At what point something happened to me that happens to many people, which is I initially joined my first startup because I really loved what they do, the product, what they stand for, the values, and so on. And after a couple of years, I really started realizing that the decision-making process of the C-level leadership team was more oriented towards their own wallet and their own benefits than the ones of employees we were serving. And so it started kind of disengaging from there, and that's exactly the moment when I met my co-founder, Michael Bunting, who's been working for 26 years. He's a South African born, who's been in Australia for 15 years, and he's been working for over 20 years as a consultant in leadership development, adult development, and working very deeply with organizations on changing the way his clients work, changing the culture to bring in mindfulness and self-awareness to the leadership first, and then spread it to the rest of the organization. Now, as a one individual, it's extremely complicated to do that, and so he decided that he needed to find a way to scale it through technology, and so that's when we met. So that was 2 years ago. Started working on Awaken Mind, and just a couple of months back, I moved to Singapore as part of the Australian Lending Pads program.
Great. So you brought Awaken Mind here?
So we're working globally already with clients all around the world. The core is in Europe and in Australia for now, and we came here to try and understand the market a little bit better. There are some very interesting stats here that might mean that they really need what we do, and so I just came here to confirm those hypotheses.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to Singapore, firstly.
Thank you.
And let me understand mindfulness. My immediate assumption is meditation.
So meditation is obviously a big part of that, but it's actually it's actually only one of the two dimensions that compose mindfulness. Mindfulness is basically training your brain on staying focused on whatever you're doing at that point in time, and avoid any judgment. So that means avoid all of the biases and heuristics that define, the shortcuts of our brain, of our judgment processes. And the idea is really to develop that skill in order to stay aware of your body, of your mind, of your emotions at any point in time. So meditation is what we call the formal practice of mindfulness. So it's setting aside some time to actually train that skill very precisely. I sit down, or there are lots of different activities that can be done and that would be considered as some kind of meditation. Even swimming, as long as we train our brain on staying focused on the swim and not starting to think about the meeting tomorrow, whatever happened this morning, what we're going to have for dinner and so on, can be called a meditation. And then there is the second dimension, which is the informal practice. And that's all about bringing that skill that we develop during the meditation onto our daily lives. And that can be as simple as putting your phone aside purposely when you're on a meeting and not, check the notifications, touching it, playing with it, and so on and so on.
Yeah, being present in the moment. It's tough though, isn't it? There's a lot of distractions. Technology, obviously, is a big part of this, right? It's pulling our attention constantly. And I find, even like doing this interview as well, that I find that the best interviews, the best conversations, I should say, rather than interviews that I've had in these podcasts is when you are really present in the moment. Like, okay, we're aware of all this going on around us. There's technology happening, and there's different screens, and obviously the cameras and the microphones. Yet to engage somebody and to really talk, that sort of presence, it's hard to have that on a daily basis. But when you achieve it, I feel that you come away and think, wow, that was really interesting. Like, okay,
absolutely,
that was business, but also you felt like, you connected with somebody and you had a really good conversation. Yeah. I think we struggle, don't we? Because my feelings, and I don't know if I speak for the rest of the world, but that those moments when we're really present are rare. I don't know. Is that how it is these days? I mean, what do you see? You must talk to people on a daily basis about this.
So it is very, very rare. It's very, very hard to practice, and most people fall very easily into all of the distractions. So I mean, we've all heard that the research that says that the human attention span is lower than that of the goldfish. So actually, it's called attention deficit trait, which is a global phenomenon. So 8 seconds is the average attention span of human beings. And technology addiction plays a huge role in that. And so, people often just don't even consider the practice, because to be honest, it's not something that is as widely accepted yet or recognized as something that everyone needs to do in order to be a well-respected adult human being. And so
it doesn't equate to, it's sort of like a alternative lifestyle in many people's eyes, isn't it? But I read Tim Ferriss's Tribe of Mentors. I can't remember, or whatever it was. Not Tribe of Mentors, but the one before, Tools of Titans, the big fat red book he wrote. He interviewed like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all high-level people who've achieved success in their field, whether actors or investors. And he said, and I don't know how true this is, but it comes with authority that it's based on every interview that he did. 80% of the people in that book practice some form of mindfulness on a daily basis. So you can look at it, all these people who have success in every different kind of field, sport, business, medicine, practice mindfulness. So the case is out there. I think the data points are out there. It's slowly like people bringing it in and saying, okay, this is not just extreme hippies, right? This has a benefit now to everybody.
Yeah, it's finally coming. So as you pointed out, there are lots of very, very famous people that totally credit mindfulness and meditation practice, to credit their success to mindfulness and meditation practice. Ray Dalio from Bridgewater Capital, even Novak Djokovic from the tennis player. The research is finally catching up. So what happened is the very first research paper on the benefits of mindfulness dates from 1983.
Wow, It's quite late, really, isn't it?
It's quite late.
Yeah.
But the real problem is that for the next 20 years, so between 1983 and 2004, there were less than 100 papers that were released on the benefits of mindfulness. And it's since that time that we finally started seeing an ever-increasing...
You got a slide, right?
I got a slide on that,
okay, yeah. Let's have a look at the data now that we're talking numbers. We're jumping in and out of the pitch deck, but this one
That's
here,
the one, yeah.
slide, and bear in mind some people are listening so they can't see this. Slide 3, you've got this exponential curve of mindfulness journal publications year by year.
That's it.
0 in 1980, 1 in 83, right?
Yeah.
Where are we now?
So now, I mean, I don't have the 2018 statistics on here, but I think it was about 1,200 papers. So from 2005, we start seeing an increase, and it's really jumped from 700 research papers in 2016 to 1,038 in 2017. And today we keep on, every day I find new articles, new journals introducing not only actually something that's very interesting in what we do, not just individual mindfulness, but we start also see something that is called group mindfulness, which is very interesting in the organizational
what is that
dimension.
Because when I hear group mind, it doesn't have a positive tone to it.
So group mindfulness is really just about having practices as a group, as a team, for reach the exact same outcome, which is be present when we interact as a group and avoid judgments, biases, and so on and so on. So that's something that has been proven effective actually already in the 1980s. I don't remember the names and so on, but it was Michael Jordan's team, the NBA
Chicago
team,
Bulls.
whatever that was.
You can tell you're French. The Americans will be dying at this hearing.
Yeah, I know. But so what happened is his coach actually introduced group mindfulness. So they were working together, meditating together, and doing some exercises to really facilitate that dynamics. And even if individually the players were not specifically practicing, well, it actually led them to become the champions like the year after.
Yeah. I mean, it's been well documented, mindfulness in sport.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has been practiced and it's out there now. People get it. You know, sports psychology has been a thing for a while. Yeah. Everything from visualization to mindfulness, and that's out there. Yes, start again. Less so in the workplace. So let's talk about that, because that's really where you come in, isn't it? And I'm really fascinated by this. I know a good friend of mine has a very successful startup here, a company called Bamboo. Shout out to Ned Phillips. So Ned's team practice mindfulness. They meditate together. When I thought about that, I thought, oh, that's interesting. But I thought it was more interesting than, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing companies do now. So
we see a lot of companies, we see a lot of companies that actually bring in trainers, coaches, facilitators that are going to come in and give a 1-day workshop or an 8-week program and so on not necessarily mindfulness specifically. It can be as broad as self-awareness, resilience, just general emotional intelligence training and so on. And so that's something that is very, very popular, bringing people in. The problem is that all of those topics, to actually get the benefits from that training, it really relies on having a continuous practice. And so those organizations keep on bringing in people and having those trainings, and that's kind of that checkbox that you do. But a few days later, employees and leaders just get out of it because they don't have actually a support structure to really build up on that training and really understand, really consolidate those learnings. Even if they understand, they haven't understood it really.
Right, it's not fundamentally inside them. Right, it's just
they haven't awakened.
Okay, there you go. So it's a long-term process as well. So you're looking to change that, put in a bit of a long-term base for people to practice, not just to do it in a short sprint.
That's it.
This is the world we live in, though, isn't it? We want results. We're going to do a sprint. We're going to do a mindfulness sprint for the next 3 weeks, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about awakened mind. We're going to jump into the pitch deck now. So we've looked at the numbers. You talked about the problem, which is, I don't even know we need to really go deep into the problem. Like, we are, as a race, quite stressed.
Yeah, and it's pretty widely
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get that bit, then there's no point going any further, right? So I think it's well documented. So the solution really is mindfulness, a part of that. But within that, the problem of the solution, in a sense, is that a lot of people want this. A, they don't have the time. B, they don't know how. Like you say, these sort of mindfulness sprints where, you know, I'm going to get this and I'm going to do this and check it off, right? Which is obviously not what it's about. So you've brought us to understand a little bit about what mindfulness is, how we practice it. You talked about the formal and informal practice, which is really interesting because I think people think just meditation, but for you, it's that ongoing practice, staying awake, staying mindful during the day. Yeah. And, you know, I've heard people talk about walking meditation and stuff like that. I guess that's...
There are, lots of ways to meditate. Really. Even just sitting down, not thinking about anything, playing with your favorite plush toy as a kid, and focusing on the feeling of the plush can be meditation. It's just about training your brain to not thinking about anything else.
Right. Yeah. I'll come to that in a minute. And I remember with my son when he was a kid, like, I mean, he's a kid now, but when he was a kid, like 5 years old, eating an ice cream. And I just watched him and I sat for a minute and it was quite mindful for me watching him eating an ice cream because I was just like turned off, you know, it's like just watch it and enjoy. Yeah. You know, when you watch somebody make something like a craftsman and they're really into it, you can just enjoy that them in the zone. Yeah. Just like you say with sport, for example, when somebody plays, you can really get into that. And watching him eating an ice cream, and I said to him, what are you thinking about? Because if I'm doing that, like I'm thinking 1,000 different things. And he's like, nothing. And I thought there was quite a purity in that I think we try and capture that a little bit, is that in a way it's in us, but we've kind of, I don't know what you feel about it. Why is that? We've kind of learned it away, if you like.
Yeah, so that's actually a great point because mindfulness is something that you're born with. So exactly as you pointed out, babies, they are never thinking about what they're going to eat later or what happened yesterday. They're just thinking about whatever is making them cry at this point in time.
Yeah.
And so they're always constantly 100% mindful, and it's our environment. It's as we grow up. It's the interaction with people, the different tools that we use, and just everything that happens in our life that takes that quality out of us. And that's when the training of mindfulness and the practice becomes important, because the idea is you will never be able to be 100% mindful. It's literally impossible. There are too many things happening in life, and if you want to be 100% mindful, the only way is to live in a cave,
right?
Which is not working not something that works for everyone. So the idea is really just to not let that quality get out of us too much.
Bring it back.
Yeah, that's it.
In moments. And I guess in a way, maybe people are a little bit scared because it can be associated with childishness, right? That it looks a bit childish for like just, you associate that's how children think. Yet there's a real, like, and we'll talk about the benefits in a minute of thinking like that. And there's a lot of research done about when they talk about entrepreneurs and very creative people, sometimes they're quite childish, not in behaving like children, but they have that sort of presence in a way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that maybe one of the reasons we don't let that back into our world is because we're fearful that in some way it's a regression going backwards. Yeah. Like, you know, I'm like this, I'm very productive like this, I don't want to be like that.
Okay, so that's actually that might be true for the mindfulness of the body and the mindfulness of your mind, so being aware of your body, what's happening inside of you. But there is also a very the higher levels of mindfulness start to help you actually stay in control of your mental patterns. So, you know, these behaviors that we all have that we don't like having, and that we always end up noticing a bit later, I did it again.
Oh, I have so many of those.
Me too. And that's something that as a child, you don't understand that it's something that you need to work on.
Yeah.
But that's something that as an adult, you start realizing it. And that's what mindfulness starts to allow you to keep in check.
Right, it's like you're an actor. You're stepping back a little bit and watching. You're a director, and you're seeing, actually, I'm just an actor in this. I can step back a little bit.
That's exactly it. In my example, I grew up a little bit capricious, and I had some. I still have some anger issues sometimes, just a little bit, you know, of warm blood that fuse at once. And practicing mindfulness, I mean, I'm not at the point where I am totally zen. I'm not gonna lie, but it really allows me to actually start capturing and noticing when I start having this kind of warmth, of heat that's coming up, and before I start talking and saying things that I may not want to actually say, I just okay, this is the pattern that where I know things are going to happen that should not happen, so I should just stop right now.
So it's not like you don't have those feelings, it's just that you have a break, almost like a gap.
That's it.
Between that feeling and your behavior.
That's exactly it.
So it's not like you don't feel angry or you feel like somebody cuts you off in the queue, you're like, but before you actually flip, you actually have that moment to stop and...
That's exactly it. So flipping for people is it's one thing, but as you practice mindfulness, you start kind of deconstructing it into different things that happen in your body, in your mind, and so on and so on. And so that's exactly it. Before the tipping point of the flipping, you notice and you do something about it.
Yeah. Okay. We have to look at how you're going to solve the problem of practicing mindfulness. Yeah. Because everybody obviously wants this in some form. Nobody would say, no, I don't want to be happier. So, but how do you get there? I think the issue is everything that we talked about, but also people are quite busy and they want results. Yeah. And I've done meditation before and it's extremely frustrating for me. And sitting down, I'm one of these people, I don't know if you find, I mean, as an entrepreneur yourself, we've had these conversations in here with entrepreneurs. It's very noisy up there. Yeah. Up here, there's a lot going on. It's like you're meditating and you're trying to shut it off. And then it's like, I've got to pay that bill. I've got to finish that website I'm building. And then like, what happened? And then, that practice, I've got to keep bringing it back. That's very frustrating. Annoying, yeah. It's very annoying. And then, months and months of doing that, eventually not making progress. So I imagine a lot of people get frustrated and get bored even with practicing mindfulness, that they're not getting results. Maybe they're doing it for the wrong reasons. I don't know. Why is that?
So I think that's exactly, they do it for the wrong reasons. They're expecting a kumbaya type of moment where all of a sudden I understand everything. Yeah. I know I saw God, and that's just not how it works. And it's all about, and that's also something that mindfulness and the practice brings you. It's developing acceptance of what is now. And again, having a more granular view on your life, on your experiences, on what happened. And throughout time, if you really, so just to give you some stats behind that, actually, it's been proven that you only need to practice meditation for 10 to 12 minutes a day. And in 6 to 8 weeks, you literally have your brain that rewires itself. So that is not something that you can really see, right? But it does happen. And a few weeks later, you start feeling like, I know I haven't started mindfulness a long time ago. It was just a couple of years back, right? And I mean, after a few months, so it does take time, of course, you really start noticing. So it's all about not quitting. And that's why we kind of we work with teams and with organizations as groups, because you add a dimension that is the accountability. Right. When you're doing with yourself and just for yourself, it's so easy to quit because you're not accountable to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no feedback as well, is there? It's like when you're doing it as a group, you can talk about this stuff. When you're on your own, it's like, what's going on here? Yeah. So you find it's better to do it as a group, more effective? Will I get better results? Because there's that danger, isn't it, doing exercise as a group where it's like, are you going to the gym tonight? No. I'm not going to go then. So you have that dynamic going on.
So the results, I wouldn't say they get specifically necessarily better, but you will have more people that gets those benefits then. So if you take 100 people and you get them to download a meditation app out there, you will have maybe 2-3 that will actually get to it and benefit from it. If you get a team of 20 people and have them run a program as a team, you will have more than 50% that really benefit from it in 8 weeks.
Right. and we can talk about what those benefits are for the CEO who needs the business case to make this work.
Sure.
We can look at that as well, the investment. Let's get the app up and have a look at it as well. And I'm obviously going to ask you the question you must get asked all the time is, why an app? Because, surely we should be turning off from technology, right? I mean, I'm sure you've heard all this before. So these are all the numbers. We'll come back to those in a minute. But I'll have a look. You've got the Awaken Mind app, and I know you have the sort of the platform as well. You've got the Learning Center here.
That's it.
Guided meditation, NeuroSync, which is we're going a bit deeper here.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, you've got all the different tools within that. Can you just start at the top? This is effectively a meditation app with extra dimensions to it. That's how I see it from the pitch deck, but maybe there's more.
So it's a holistic mindfulness application, and it's designed for the health and well-being of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So as we said earlier, companies really very easily just bring a trainer that is going to give whatever training or program, and then nothing happens. The idea is is for those trainers, those consultants that already do that work, to actually leverage the app.
Right.
In order to consolidate those learnings and really empower employees to have that tool that allows them to build up on that training. And so after a live training, after a program, the idea is to get the teams to meet together and use the app, learn from the app. So there are a range of topics that are talked about, mainly obviously self-awareness, health and well-being in general, and mindful leadership. And get them together to actually reflect as a team on how they can practically apply the principles and the benefits of mindfulness for the specificities of their teams, and really make it into a practice that is actually sticky within the organization.
Right. So it's not just a mindfulness app for an individual. It's aimed at the team.
Designed for the corporate environment.
Okay. So they would interact with each other through the app as well?
So yeah, there are groups, there are chats, there are different ways you can comment. So we create cohorts for each team that they will be able to comment with one another, see group statistics, a lot of gamifications around that. And we measure always. There is a feedback tool inside the app, a 360 check-in kind of thing, where you just say, okay, I want to improve myself on, as a leader, for example, empower my team to take their own decisions, which is something that lots of managers are very adept of micromanaging, and it's something that's extremely hard to keep in check.
Well, let's start there then. I'm interested in that, empowering the team to make decisions. How will mindfulness, we'll come to the app in a minute, but how will mindfulness help there?
So it's really, again, all about self-awareness. And as a leader, it's noticing when it's time to cut your people some slack. And it's time to just take a quick step back. Again, you see yourself going the extra mile and asking again for one specific thing, instead of letting the direct reports take their own initiative. It's just, okay, I see what I'm doing here. I see it's the pattern that I want to get rid of, or at least allay in some way or another. So I'm just going to stop myself. Yeah.
It's like being stuck in traffic, isn't it? Sometimes you just have to say, look, this ain't going to change. I can't change this. It's just going to happen, right? I find I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and I find that often being an entrepreneur reinforces and rewards certain ways of thinking and behaviors, not the micromanaging part, but, like this, I need to get it done. And there's a wall, I'm going to walk through the wall. If there's something in the way, I'm going to smash through it. And that rewards certain kind of behaviors, patterns, because you can see how that leads to success in a startup. And in the corporate world, as well, maybe by contrast, sometimes it's beyond your control, like whether or not you get promoted or fired. Sometimes there's nothing to do with you. So in that sense, there is that sense of acceptance, like you say, like, okay, I'm not in complete control of my fate here, so I accept that. So, but here in the startup world, I can't blame somebody for the fact that this didn't work out. It's me, or, it's all my fault. I'm just, I saw Gary V saying the other day, like, if you fail at being an entrepreneur in this day and age, like with all the internet and you suck.
Yeah.
I saw that and I thought, actually, that's really true. Like, I've got it so easy. So there's nowhere, what I'm trying to say, there's nowhere to hide for an entrepreneur. So, you know, you have to accept that I'm like, you know, I have to do all this myself. There's no acceptance. If it fails, it's my fault, bum, 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 all that kind of thinking. So it seems like we must be the hardest people to work with here.
Well, yes, yes and no, because I mean, at the end of the day, all of those things, they're external factors. And one very, very core thing to understand is that 90% of happiness comes from within, and external factors are only responsible for 10% of happiness. So if you actually want to be happy, all of those things, they matter, of course, but they should not send you into depression or send you. It's all about building resilience, and even if you suck, so what? Who cares? Like, because there are lots of other things that are happening in your life. If you suck, it just means that you were not into it as much as you should have, and if you're not into it as much as you should have, it's that you're not engaged enough, or your talent really lays somewhere else. So it's all about accepting that, staying, looking within, and just finding either a different path or just keep throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Maybe just throwing it at the wall is what makes you happy, right? For some people.
That's my thing.
Right.
I just love trying new things, seeing what works, and I mean, so there are failures happen, and it's just about, okay, it happened. Maybe I suck, maybe I don't. It doesn't really matter in the end because it happened. Now what's next? And
how old are you now, Julien?
I'm 26.
26. So, in a very patronizing way, talking about your generation, I mean, because I'm quite aware of how young people now are consuming social media, and I don't want to do it in a way, oh, it's really bad, but I can see, for example...
It is really bad.
Well, I can see the benefit of it in many ways, but I can see also, like, you take Instagram, for example, and I'm on Instagram, but I want to get off it because I'm very aware of how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
And, like, it's like, you know, those fruit machines, like you press the button and it's like they're programmed to like it's programmed to gamify your attention in a way, and I find like all that, it's like I'm comparing I don't have a private jet. It's like I must be a failure, like this person, look at the villa they've got in Bali, look at me, I'm working on like Christmas Day, for example. I didn't work on Christmas Day, but I'm working on a holiday, right? I'm seeing this person in a villa in Bali. I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? So I find I'm 46, but I think for younger people, they must be even more sensitive to this, like going to the workplace, looking around, look at social media. How do you find people in your generation responding to this? Is it aware? People aware of that sort of comparison? What is the word? Fear of missing out? Or
well, people... To be fair, people of my generation, I mean, at 26, I haven't had many very bad thing that happened in my life, right? I have it much easier than most of the 50 years old. I have to deal with children, a wife, and whatever. So from that standpoint, mindfulness or or even the problem of technology, you have more time to dedicate to that. You're just there is much more leeway that you can allow yourself to have on those topics, but it is a big problem. And again, going back to the workplace, it actually has a drastic impact on your performance. So just the fact of having your phone next to you and having notifications that pop up increases the likelihood of you making errors, mistakes, and that also works when you're studying, by the way, by 28%. Which is a lot, which is tremendous. So if you're doing an exam, a practice exam, you're just going to have your grade is going to be much lower than it would if you would turn your phone off, put it in a different room, and it's very hard to actually realize the extent to which you're addicted to technology, but it's the same with, again, every addiction.
Right.
The first step is acceptance, and then get into the next stage of moving on and dealing with it.
It's the awareness of it, isn't it? It's like that space, because we still maybe
Acceptance,
reach
yeah.
for it and then think, oh,
That's
hang on a
it.
second, do I need to look at that when I wake up?
Yeah, actually, Instagram has when was it? It was 8 months ago, I think. Now they put the you've seen everything, or there is nothing
Yeah.
else to see, which is a pretty good thing. There is a podcast, another podcast called You're in Divided Attention.
No.
Have you heard of the Center for Humane Technology?
I may have come across it, yeah.
It's all about exactly that. It's the gamification of social media and so on, and the Center for Human Technology is trying to make people understand, and especially designers, the app designers, website designers, of the impact that they're having on people, because people don't necessarily realize that they're addicted and so on. And as a designer, when you create your infinite scroll, you don't realize that it might have very, very negative repercussion on the psyche of people all around the world. You just think it's great because people are just going to see everything as much as they want. But is it really good for them?
That's
Not
really
necessarily,
interesting.
yeah.
I didn't know there was such a movement, but that's fascinating. And it's sense that people are becoming aware of that, at least. It's an issue. I want to look at some of the numbers you've got here, because I find this really interesting in terms of the impact of awareness and being awake, I suppose, staying awake in the workplace. And just like, you've got a whole set of slides here. I'm just going to bump back. So I'm just going to find them here, because we jumped around a little bit, back 6 and 7, I think. Isn't it? The impact on teams and leaderships here.
That's it.
So you've got impact of mindful leaders on teams and then on followers. Let's start with the followers bit, because I'm interested in this.
So that's actually research that has been done by my co-founder, by Michael Bunting. So he wrote a book called The Mindful Leader, which is a leadership assessment. And through his research, by interviewing thousands and thousands of leaders around the world, surveying millions of employees, literally, he came up with the fact that 32.8% of an employee's mental health is entirely dependent on their manager's behavior, which means that for every 10% of mindful leadership, let's say that a manager, mindful leadership behaviors, we're going to call them mindful behaviors, for every 10% of behavior that they show, it's an extra 2.8% of the employee's mental health that they gain, which is ridiculous. A third of your mental health, it should be the most important thing taken into consideration when talking about health and well-being. It's not just about giving out free membership, gym membership, or a meditation room. It starts at the leadership development.
Those are more gimmicky, right? Aren't they? The fact is, it's more fundamental with the people.
That's it.
And I find this a really interesting area, because you're seeing increasingly large organizations with huge HR and recruitment budgets trying to get the best talent and retain that talent. You know, why would I work at Facebook or Stripe or Gojek or Grab? At the end of the day now, it depends on the workplace, and they're spending millions on getting those people. And, you know, the best talent leaves. Yeah. They go to where they're treated best, right? And how much of it comes down to this, like how well they're treated, how well people treat each other.
That's it. I mean, culture, it's any perk for breakfast. Like, I mean, you can have the nicest gaming room at work. If every time you're outside, again, it becomes an escape more than if you need to escape from your work. There is a problem. There is a fundamental problem in your workplace, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Yeah,
that's very true. I mean, when you do the numbers, like, you spend 80%, 90% of your waking life at work. Right. So, or thinking about it, commuting to work. Right. So why not make it a place where you can enjoy? So you talked about the impact of mindful leadership. What would that be, for example? Like, how would a mindful leader practice in a way? What is it? Just being aware of their thought processes and how they. We talked about micromanaging. Are there any other examples of that?
Micromanaging, obviously, is one. There are, lots of leaders that tend to show their emotions a bit too much. And don't control what they're saying. So that's another big and that's everyone at some point in their lives. If at some point continuously, and that's all right. But it's all about, again, recognizing it, being aware of it, apologizing if it happens, trying to make it not happen or happen at least less times. And so that's another dimension of mindfulness, which is, we talked a lot about internal feeling good, feeling happy, blah, 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 but it's also being aware of the impact that you have around yourself, or around you, on your surroundings, which is extremely important as a leader. So yeah, it's about noticing and understanding. It's paying more attention to people, to your team members, and really understand them, caring for them genuinely, which allows you to adapt your behavior to their personality. I mean, and that falls into emotional intelligence. I mean, you can really pinpoint all of those buzzwords of the corporate environment to the benefits of mindfulness.
How does that sit when we live in a world where, for example, and I mean, I'm speaking for the position of startups and entrepreneurs and small growing businesses, fast growing businesses, corporates as well, I suppose. Now increasingly they're trying to teach startup type thinking and being a bit more lean and agile and so on. There is that whole narrative in that world where you never give up and never accept no for an answer, and yet at the same time happiness comes from some degree of acceptance, right? So when it's raising money for your company, don't accept no, keep going. It's all of that. There's that pressure which is almost like this is how you succeed and potentially become happy in this environment. And I'm trying to paraphrase how people say this, right?
It's the when then game. When I get that, then I'll be happy.
I'll be happy, and I won't give up until I get to that point. If you want to be successful, you have to think and do like these guys, and this is their story. They never gave up. They never accepted no for an answer. So they changed the universe. That was the sort of the narrative, isn't it? It's like this brilliant person bent the laws of physics, yet you're saying to be happy, we need to accept those.
Yeah, so I think, there are lots of people that are exactly like that, and that's what they love, right? They're salespeople, right? They just love getting out there and not getting no for an answer, and they're the ones that talk the loudest in every room, and that's why that's the story that sticks. But I believe that what makes you successful, or even your company successful, are actually meeting the right people. And to meet the right people, you need to meet people with that align, whose values align with yours, right? And to do that, you first need to be very clear on what your values are, who you are as a person, what do you stand for. If you meet someone that, for example, is very individualistic, opportunistic, which is fine. Like, shit happens. But you are more of a very loyal, like it's about staying close to your family, your friends, like people around you, and so on and so on. There will always be some kind of clash at some level, and so you can't really have a deep partnership where you're going to do everything to help them, they're going to do everything to help you. Where two opportunistic people, they will always find another way to help you to get something out of it, and it kind of snowballs like that. So by being very aware of who you are, what you stand for, and practicing on staying true to that, you start to attract people that are like that around you, and build that network, and those people are going to be much more likely to help you out and make you more successful, and so on and so on. And the same idea works in the context of organizational development. If, as an organization, you are very clear on what your values are, what you stand for, and the outcomes that you want for society as a whole, you're going to attract people that align with that. And if you really embedded to the DNA of the organization, people that do not align with that are just going to go away.
That's what you want.
That's what I want. That's what we want.
Yeah, good. I like that. Before I ask you about the journey of your company itself and how you sort of grown and what your plans are, out there in the, I suppose more in the media world, who gets celebrated, are there role models in this space, like mindful leaders who, we have the classic organizational leaders out there who are painted as the role models, and you can take your pick, and generally they aren't what we're talking about now. But are there people who we should be saying, look at these people, they are good examples of mindful leaders? I know it's not perfect. That's what
But honestly, for my favorite, and it's probably again a generational thing, is who you mentioned earlier, Gary V.
Really?
Gary Vaynerchuk. He is a very, very compassion-driven leader, always talking about empowering people, giving people time. He always says that even the latest intern that just started 2 weeks ago is going to find time for them. And it's really just all about building a culture where people feel appreciated, and just get what they want, get what they need. Even if you come in just for 6 months and then you leave and create your own media agency, he's fine with that as long as you're honest about it, which is one of his core values. So that's someone that I really, really like. It's
really interesting you say that, because he doesn't come across as mindful, because he's quite not aggressive but hard pointed delivery, isn't it? I would have thought a mindful person is like more like a guru, like more calm. But you're saying that shows it doesn't have to be like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, there are every personality works, and like that kind of monk type of thing, they're going to end up in a cave, so they're not going to end up being the CEO of a multinational company. Yeah.
Okay, we're just breaking stereotypes. That's the point. I mean, that's really interesting. Okay, so your company itself, Awaken Mind, tell us about where you are in your development. How old is the company itself, and what are your plans from here?
So the product itself, we started building it about 4 or 5 years ago. The company, we started working with our very first client 2 years ago. And in May last year, we really went to markets. We're already working with some of the biggest companies in the world. We're working on a global project with one of the biggest pharmaceutical groups in the world. We're working with one of the big 4 for the entire Asian region here in South Asia. We're working with the biggest CRM company for the whole APAC. And the list goes on, like hotel companies, the second biggest hotel group. And what we are really, really focusing on right now is actually getting some research done. So we mentioned the research earlier, and there is one research that shows that leaders that show advanced level of mindfulness or self-awareness have employees that are up to 28% more productive, half as likely to burn out, which is a big thing here in Singapore. Well, one of the researchers behind that was my professor at NUS. And so when I came back here, we kind of reconvened, and we're now working together on a full-on global research with our global clients to really demonstrate not just the benefit of individual mindfulness in the corporate environment, which has already been demonstrated many times, but we're tackling these group dynamic things that we mentioned earlier, and group mindfulness, and really try and have a deep dive into that.
Right. So the focus is on producing that sort of thought leadership research.
Yeah. So no one is really doing what we do. Where it's extremely different from any meditation app out there, or even training organizations out there. We come as a way to consolidate what already exists. It's a problem that is widely recognized, that has absolutely no solution so far. And so the idea is to make people understand that, it's to make people understand that yes, there is a solution, there is Awaken Mind, and it works.
Great. And are you raising funds at the moment?
Not raising funds.
You're not raising funds at the moment. Are you recruiting?
We're not recruiting yet, but I will be recruiting in 2020.
Right.
So it's very soon. Right now, I'm going to be recruiting in UX predominantly, so it's in app engagement, UX.
But now's a good time to engage you, right? I mean, if somebody wants to get on board in the future,
absolutely,
it's good to start talking to you and finding a bit about how, and the why behind the company and so on. Long before somebody wants a job with you, right?
Absolutely, because I'm always happy to have conversations, have coffees and so on, and I love people giving me advice. That know stuff, that are experts on topics that I am not of. I am trying my best for app engagement, for example, employee engagement within the app, but I don't have any specific background on that, so I rely on my network for that.
Great. Excellent. Well, I've enjoyed this chat and learning a little bit about that area. I mean, obviously we're aware of awareness and mindfulness, but, you know, in the sense that the group dynamic as well, and how important that is. And I can see as well, especially being based here in Asia, how much that would come into play, right? And it's an interesting, you know, I'm not making sweeping generalizations, but, you know, the large corporates, you know, here with huge workforces, and everybody now is talking about burnout, mindfulness, well-being, all these issues as well. So it's only going to, and I think that combined with everything we talked about with Instagram and so, it's going to get worse, right?
Yeah.
So,
and there is 30% of turnover in Southeast Asia. 30
corporates in terms of
30 employees out of 100 quit their job every year, change jobs, and that's actually a very, very high statistics. And I mean, the main reason why people quit job is because they have mental health issues, whether it's stress, anxiety, depression, and so on, that are not supported by their environment, and that's something that is absolutely dramatic, and that needs to be addressed like really right now, because in the long run, those people that have under heavy stress and heavy anxiety are going to pass that on and serve that as a model to their children, and the norm, and it's going to become the norm, and that's not something that we want, and that's something that really differentiates, I think at the level of organizational development, differentiates Southeast Asia from Australia and Europe, because in those countries, when you quit your job or when you're fired or anything like so, in France, for example, you're still okay. Like, you still make money, you have an entire support infrastructure behind you to help you out. And so companies already decades ago started tackling this retention and paying attention to people's support, health and well-being, and so on, which here was not the case for the longest time, which led that led to that 30% turnover, and that needs to be addressed.
Just before you go, I want to know from you personally what you do, like for mindfulness. Okay. Just, I mean, I guess you meditate.
Yeah.
What do you do outside of that? Would you surprise us, the things that you do, like practicing on a day-to-day basis?
One thing that, and I've been doing that for years actually, before even I got into mindfulness specifically. My phone has no vibrator, no notification, nothing. All notifications are off, and it never I only check my phone when I want to. So at first, it was kind of double-edged sword, because I ended up checking it more because I didn't know if there was something coming. Exactly. And it takes practice and discipline to be like, no, I'm just going to do whatever I have to do, and in an hour or whatever, I'll check it.
And the world still goes on, right?
Work still goes on. I still get my shit done. Everything is working very well so far. So, nothing to complain about.
Just on that matter, do you keep the phone in the bedroom at night?
I do. The main reason behind that is that I do a guided meditation before sleeping, and so it's there, and then I just sleep.
Right,
so.
that works. Yeah. Okay. Because I know it's the temptation, isn't it? Like, as soon as you wake up, look at the phone, check
my
it.
phone is my alarm, so that ain't I have no choice.
You got it worked out. Okay. Well, we have a lot to learn. Julien, thanks so much for coming in today and sharing a bit about your journey as well as some insights into awareness and group mindfulness as well. So wishing you all the best. Look forward to hearing more about your research as well. So come back when you've got findings that you want to share as well. Anybody out there as well who is touched by this conversation would like to reach out to Julien, what would be the best way? LinkedIn work for you?
LinkedIn works very well for me.
Yeah, I know you do check your phone, right?
Yeah.
Once in a while.
Of course.
Don't expect an immediate response though. He's probably meditating somewhere. Right?
That's it.
Getting on with it. That's Julien Remond, everybody, from the Awaken Mind. Thank you so much for coming today. We'll put all the details in the show notes.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Graham Brown from Pitchdeckasia. Pitchdeckasia, powered by Pitch Media Asia. Pitch about giving startup founders a voice. We are a show to help startup founders share their journey. So if you enjoy these stories, then why not subscribe to our YouTube channel? There's the subscribe button over there. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on the journey. Leave a comment. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.